and welcome to our geography lesson for this week. This week we're going to look at comparing cities. So today is Wednesday the 3rd of February 2021 and our learning intention today is to compare a city in Romania to a city in England. Our first step today is to think of 3 comparative statements, and we will talk a little bit more about what that means. Step 2, to research and find your own statements to compare. And step 3, to find similarities and differences between the 2 cities. So, previously in our geography learning this term, we have been looking at cities and towns and countries and continents. I want you to think to yourself about the following questions. What is a city? And do we live in a city or a town? Pause the video here and have a think, then unpause when you are ready. So, you should have paused the video there and had a think about those 2 questions. What is a city and do we live in a city or a town? I'm going to start with the second one because it's a little bit easier. Do we live in a city or a town? So we live in Ipswich. Ipswich is a town. Can anyone think of a really good way of remembering whether Ipswich is a city or a town? The way I remember it is you need to think of the football club. So this doesn't work for all cities and towns, but Ipswich Football Club is called Ipswich Town FC. So there you go, there's a little clue in that sense that Ipswich is a town. Compared to Norwich City Football Club, therefore Norwich is a city. So what is a city? On Google, it says that a city has to have a population of more than 300,000 people. That is quite a lot of people, but a lot of cities in England have a lot more people than that in it, almost double in some cases. It also needs to be where there is lots and lots of people living, lots of jobs, lots of opportunities. They call it a metropolitan hub. Obviously, in some towns that can be the case too. It also, interestingly, used to be that a city was a place that had a cathedral in it. But there are some cities that don't have cathedrals, and there are some places with cathedrals in that aren't cities. So that isn't really true anymore. Today, I'm going to teach you about some features of a city in England. Then, I'm going to teach you about some features of a city in Romania. I will give you an example. Then I would like you to spend 15 minutes writing your own comparative statements. A comparative statement is when we compare 2 things. So we look at what is similar about those 2 things, but also, and crucially, what is different about those 2 things. So today, we are comparing a city in England to a city in Romania. We're going to look at the differences and we are going to look at the similarities. And then we're going to be writing some statements. The city I have chosen to talk about today, the city in England that I have chosen to talk about, you might have heard it already, is the city of Manchester. So what I thought would be the best way, instead of having loads and loads of writing on the screen, I thought it would be a good idea to get lots and lots of pictures of Manchester. Pictures that I think capture what Manchester is like. Manchester is a really, really large city in England. Its population is 547,627. That's a lot of people. Remember how we said before that to be a city city needs to have a population of at least 300,000. So Manchester nearly has a population of double that. That census was from 2018, which means there probably is more people than that now because we're now in 2021. If you look at the top here, we can see a picture of Manchester on a map. So if you were driving to Manchester and you got your map out, that is what it would look like, okay? There are lots of places around Manchester, which we call Greater Manchester, and then there's the city centre. There's lots and lots of roads going into Manchester, and it is very busy. Here, I've got two pictures that you might recognise of the football teams in Manchester. There are two big football teams in Manchester, Manchester City and Manchester United. They are rivals, which mean they don't like each other. Whenever they play each other, things can get pretty heated. If you look here, this is the skyline of Manchester. I can see lots and lots of very tall buildings. Have a think to yourself, what do you think might be going on in those tall buildings? Do you think they're people's houses? Do you think people work there? Here you can see a very, very big picture of what looks like a very complicated roundabout. We have roundabouts all round England, but this one has lots of lanes and I think it probably gets very busy. Here are also some pictures of Manchester, the High Street, where people do their shopping. And here is a pretty picture of a bridge in Manchester. We're now going to move on to our Romanian city that I have chosen to talk to you about. This city is called Brasov. Over here you can see a map of Brasov. It's a little bit different to the map of Manchester. Think about ways it's similar and ways that it is different. The population is 253,300. Now, that is still quite a lot of people, but it is far fewer people than in Manchester. If we look, 547, 253,000. So, kind of, nearly double, really. What do you notice about the pictures of Brasov? Do they look similar to Manchester or do they look different? I can see lots and lots of old buildings. These walls look super old and everything looks really pretty, but there doesn't look to be that many people there. What do you think? Right, I have written two comparative statements about Manchester and Brasov. The first thing I've compared is the population. Do we all know what population means? It means how many people live there. Okay, we have done that before, but you might have forgotten. Population is how many people live in that place. My first statement, Manchester has a population of 547,247, but Brasov only has a population of 253,300. Notice when you do big numbers, we haven't actually done hundreds of thousands numbers, and when you get to year 5 and 6 you will do, you put a comma in between. Okay, that's because you say the number and you pause in the middle. Don't worry too much about that today, but that, if you were curious, that's why. My second comparative statement, Manchester has lots of tall buildings, but the buildings in Brasov look older and not as tall. So this is just from you looking at the pictures, I've deduced that the buildings in Manchester are really tall and they also look quite modern, whereas the buildings here look a lot shorter and they look a lot older. So I've used a special word in both of those sentences. I've used the word but. But is a conjunction, isn't it? And it is a comparative conjunction, which means we use it to compare two statements. You can also use other conjunctions. I've thought of a few. I've thought of 4 that you can use. But remember, don't use one unless you understand what it means. Manchester has lots of tall buildings. Yet the buildings in Brasov look older and not as tall. That makes perfect sense. So if you want to challenge yourself today, use all 4 of the different conjunctions, but only if you know what they mean. Your turn today. Your mild challenge is to write 3 sentences using the conjunction but to compare Brasov and Manchester. For the mild challenge, I would like you to look at the pictures I have shown you, or look at pictures on Google search, image search, to work out some comparisons. For the medium challenge, I would like you to write 3 or more sentences using a variety of conjunctions. Okay, there's your variety of conjunctions. To compare Brasov and Manchester. Make sure you are using the pictures in the slides, but also make sure you're using your own research. I would be really interested to see whether anyone can find some new facts about Brasov or Manchester. Your hot challenge today: can you find 3 similarities and 3 differences between Brasov and Manchester? Obviously, I still want you to write in full sentences, and I still want you to be using your conjunctions in the hot challenge. You choose which challenge you feel most comfortable doing. When you do your work today, make sure that in your full sentences, you have a capital letter and a full stop. Even though we are doing a geography lesson, we still need to make sure that our English is good. I will also be looking for fantastic handwriting across all lessons, so make sure that you're making your handwriting really neat and easy to read. If you have lined paper, it would be really helpful to use it to make your work look neat and easy to read. Make sure a grown-up puts your work on Class Dojo so I can see it, or Mrs. Ichetta or Mr. Sherman can see it, and we can mark it. I can't wait to see all of your great comparative sentences using the conjunction but. Good luck!